All right, everybody, welcome to In Progress. This is our weekly roundtable discussion of the political stories, issues, and ideas that are top of mind for progressive folks like us across the Lone Star State. This week, I'm Chris Mosier. I'm the podcasting director here at Progress, Texas. We're a statewide nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. This week, joined by Executive Director Kathleen Thompson.
Hey, folks.
And Advocacy and Development Coordinator Tatum Owens.
Hey, it was a long year.
Indeed. We're going to talk about that. And Digital Associate Haley Smith. Hi, Haley.
Hey, y'all.
So this has been a long-standing tradition here at Progress, Texas. Around this time, we like to think long and hard about the year that we've enjoyed over the last 361 or so days now. And we come up with our 5 best and 5 worst Texans operating in the political sphere here in Texas. And so, we got to cover 10 and we don't have a whole lot of time. So let's go ahead and jump in real quick. We're going to start with our 5 worst Texans of 2025. I'm going to have Kathleen Thompson comment first on number 5, Texas Attorney General and current U.S. Senate candidate Ken Paxton.
We can't wait to see Ken Paxton out of office. Unfortunately, he's running for a higher office, folks, if you hadn't heard. He wants to be your U.S. Senator. He wants a big, big promotion after all of his incredible work surviving an impeachment, bribery scandals, very messy divorce, which I wouldn't wish divorce on my worst enemy. But Ken Paxton has taken the Texas Attorney General's office, and instead of defending Texas consumers and Texas families, he wields that power against nonprofits, against people trying to register folks to vote, to expand the franchise, the racism and the meanness, and then the push for higher office is confounding, but some people do like to fail up, and it's going to be incumbent on Texas progressives and Texas Democrats to stop him at the ballot box.
Or even John Cornyn. Cornyn has been very fun. I'll just say it. It's been fun to watch him go after Ken Paxton. He's calling him Crooked Ken, and that he is. So it's unfortunate that the Texas Attorney General, one of the highest offices for law enforcement and also for legal battles, obviously, is a bulldog going after trans Texans, abortion rights, the most private, intimate details of Texans' lives, and nonprofit statuses, which was a major thing this year. Nonprofits hurt a lot in 2025. So I'll leave it at Ken Paxton. I want you out. He needs to go.
Yeah, I don't know what I could say about Ken Paxton that hasn't already been said, but I'm on the edge of my seat trying to find out what biblical grounds means. And I hope one day we find out. That's all I'll say.
It's looking like, we're recording this a little bit in advance, dear listeners. So it is looking like we're very likely to see the inner workings of the divorce situation there. I want to add in that it's not necessarily anything new. This weaponization of legal lawsuits and things like that. That's something that's been around for a long time. But Ken Paxton has absolutely perfected the art of doing so through a culture war sort of lens. In such a way that has hurt a lot of people. It would be nice to have him out of the AG's office, and we'll see what happens in that Senate race, of course. Let's keep on going here. Number 4, Tatum's going to start here on all the fun stuff that Dan Patrick has laid on us at number 4 of our 5 worst Texans.
Keeping it light, wasn't it so funny when he threw weed products at people in the press
At
room?
Reporters,
you guys try some of this. You try some of this.
Like, he is leading some of the worst fights in Texas, but that was just such a good moment. It was a dark time. I want to say that was around the Texas floods and the corn break. It was somewhere in there, and all of the legislative sessions that happened this year. And then you just have him throwing grocery store products at reporters. So that was just a wild moment. That's not why he landed on the list, although I will say it was really interesting to watch him lead the fight against THC and weed overall, Dan's ban. But he's one of the worst for a whole host of other reasons, which I will leave to the rest of our team to talk about.
I took a Texas politics class last semester, and we did a mock Senate thing. And one of it was over the THC bill. And we had to split into groups based on whether we were for or against the ban. And we had to watch a video of Dan Patrick going into a smoke shop and being like, don't kids come in here and buy these products? And the store owner's like, no. It's like, isn't this crazy? And he's like, this is my business. And all of us sitting there and scratching our heads, being like, so why is he doing this again? And I think Dan Patrick has taken all of the wrong lessons from like this culture war stuff, that if you just like pick a side and stick with it long enough, then like the base will rally around it. And like clearly not. You need like an ounce of charm or charisma to do that. And Dan Patrick has neither. Yeah, like you said, this all came at such a weird and ugly time. And Dan Patrick with the vouchers and stand for the invocation, he rightfully deserves his spot on the list, partly for being a destructive and hateful conservative, but also because he's weird.
We heard from both State Rep Gina Hinojosa and State Rep Vicki Goodwin at our Dallas holiday party about the good legislation that Dan Patrick stopped in the Senate. So for what could have been a person standing in the way and ruling over the Senate in the way that he did, being an impediment to a safer, healthier Texas, we also lay that at Dan's feet.
For sure. Trucking along here. Number 3 is actually a few of these we have to group a few people in. There's just so much love to spread around on our list of the 5 worst Texans in politics. The religious right. We're talking generally that collective group known as Texas Oil Christian Nationalist Billionaires that we have to deal with. Some of them in particular are Tim Dunn, the Wilkes brothers out in West Texas, known for all sorts of harm done all across Texas. Haley Smith, weigh in real quick if you would on our friends out in West Texas, billionaire types.
Well, sometimes I tell my friends, like, hey, did you guys actually know that a large majority of Texas politics is controlled by a handful of oil billionaires in West Texas? And they're like, what? Really? No, this can't be happening. And I'm like, it is. Google them. They're very public. They are not ashamed to be controlling politics the way they are. And it's a really scary time to see corruption so blatant and unashamed, especially from people who claim to be Christians. They have a lot of money and they have a lot of power, and they know what to do with it. And it's up to us to counter that machine. And I think we can do it, but it's definitely an uphill battle.
Let me speak really quickly to the claiming to be Christian part of it all. Somebody who deserves a dishonorable mention is my former state rep, who wrapped himself in the flag and pounded on the Bible for all the years that we grew our family in Tarrant County, was rude as hell when we would visit his office for gun violence prevention days with my kiddos. And that's Giovanni Capriglione, who will not be seeking re-election after his mistress said that he, who authored Texas's strict anti-abortion law that is killing women, that he paid for multiple abortions, she says. Wow. And he would leave her money underneath a mat behind businesses. And the hypocrisy of it all. I won't go into the gory, nasty details of what else she said he did. Dear listener, if you would like to look that up, it had to do with cookies. So don't let Giovanni Capriglione around your Christmas cookies, allegedly. So I just would like to list that as a dishonorable mention of Christian nationalism and the hypocrisy of the Republicans in the state legislature.
Yeah, the Republican leadership and religious right are working together to push culture wars. And we've seen that in our classrooms from 10 Commandments. We've seen that in our public school institutions, higher public school institutions with DEI bans. And across the board, you see fights against gender and reproductive justice. So targeting abortion rights and trans Texans specifically. And so all across the board, you can see that our worst list participates in this, but the people that are pushing it are the few powerful religious rights leaders, and also, white nationalists, Christian nationalist leaders at that.
I'll close out our discussion of these, oil billionaires to point out the fact that we've seen over the last little while a troubling trend of the rise of anti-Semitism. And the discussion around anti-Semitism has become a bit of a tearing point between progressives, those who support Israel, those who oppose Israel's actions in Gaza. And so that's become a very hot topic. I would say this, that very famously, Tim Dunn, who is one of these primary oil billionaires out in West Texas, famously once visited then Texas House Speaker Joe Straus, Republican, who happens to be Jewish. And famously and admittedly, not too long ago, a couple of years ago now, by Joe Straus at an appearance at UT Austin, told him face to face, told him to his face that he didn't believe it was right for him to be the Speaker of the Texas House because he was not a Christian. He didn't quite say because you're Jewish. He didn't quite go there, but I would say pretty much covered the base more or less. And so any Republican candidate or office holder or organization or anyone out there who's accepting money from Tim Dunn, you're accepting money from a person who has very specifically advocated for the marginalization of anyone who is not a Christian out of political power in Texas. Nice little easy transition, actually, is to billionaires in general. Our favorite Texas transplant of all, of course, is at the top of the list there. Elon Musk, who had so much to do. He leads the list of billionaires that clock in at number 2. Kathleen, it's your turn to go first again. Tell us about your views of Mr. Musk.
Elon Musk is the world's richest man. What he could do with his money and his power is improve people's lives instead of literally killing people. The chainsaw to USAID that helps the poorest, most defenseless, hungriest children across the globe is an unforgivable sin, whether you believe in sins or not. It's just disgusting and heartless and is not what America looks like. And I'm not sure, and I'll never understand why the Trump administration let this particular immigrant do so much damage to America and to America's standing around the world.
Yeah, I'll be talking about Musk. I really think there's no other way to put it than a South African ketamine addict cut cancer research and food for hungry kids. You can't make a worse sentence than that. Like, I tried.
We've actually done a little bit of analysis over the course of the year about the massive amount of good that the top 10 richest men, and they're all men in the world, the top 10 biggest billionaires in the world, could collectively take a small percentage of their, not only their worth, but just their proceeds over the last year or so, and essentially solve world hunger. I mean, there is massive good that could be done by these people. Instead, they're flying their own rocket ships into orbit, and they're building their own bunkers and islands, and they're doing things like that. It's kind of this, and we don't have time in this podcast to talk about all this, but there's this exit strategy that seems to have taken hold within the conversations that happen among these guys. They're not in it to save the world. They're in it to save themselves from the rest of the world. And so that's something to think about. That brings us to number 1, the top daddy, the big kahuna, the worst Texan in Texas politics. I think it's pretty obvious. Governor Greg Abbott takes number 1. Tatum, you go first on Greg.
Abbott takes the worst title because, well, for one thing, he did win this year. He did succeed in putting forward the voucher fight after pushing out pretty much every Republican elected that he could that opposed it initially. So it was an act of retribution. You have that. And then you also have him just leading the fight in tandem with President Trump against immigrants here in Texas. Texas is one of the most diverse states. That is true for the South overall, because what do we get? We have a lot of people that seek refuge here in Texas.
I'm in my last year of university right now, and the change from last year to this year is unbelievable. And Governor Abbott, with the help of the Trump administration, has successfully made activism on college campuses feel unsafe in what is supposed to be the freest country in the world. And it's surreal and scary. And I wish that I didn't have to attend higher education in this kind of climate. But governors like Greg Abbott benefit from people being scared and people not wanting to speak out. And he very rightfully deserves number 1 on this spot. But I think we all need to realize that he wants us to be scared. He wants us to not say anything, and he wants compliance. And that's what all of this is for.
Greg Abbott makes my family less safe on a daily basis. It is because of his lack of leadership that Texans died in their homes during a winter storm. States all over the country have winter storms and people survive. Kids go to camp and don't come home to their parents a week later. The focus on who's using which potty instead of making sure that Texas is a safe place for our kids and for our families, that our kids have world-class public education. The public policy priorities are just so backwards and so regressive. And that all culminating this summer with him being a lapdog for President Trump. Look what Indiana just did. Right. Indiana lawmakers were threatened by the Heritage Foundation saying, say goodbye to federal funding for your roads, for your infrastructure projects. Kiss it all goodbye if you don't do exactly what we say with redistricting. And you know what they said? GTFO.
Right, right.
And what did Greg Abbott say? Sure, Daddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll do what you say, Daddy. Who's in charge? Is Greg in charge of what happens in his state? No. Or is Donald Trump? So I think that this is a well-deserved worst.
Governor Abbott has allowed, to Kathleen's point, Donald Trump is largely running the state of Texas at this point. There's nothing that Donald Trump wants that Governor Abbott will say no to. I don't know if Trump has something on Governor Abbott. I don't know what's going on there. You know, that which is always, that's absolutely part of Trump's MO is, you know, what's he got on somebody and who's got what on Trump, of course, which is a whole nother discussion. But yeah, number one worst Texan, Governor Greg Abbott. Shifting to the more fun part, shifting to the happier part, the happier half of in progress for this week is our 5 best folks doing politics in Texas. And let's add in here that these folks have the harder lift. These folks are working uphill. These folks are Sisyphus, as it were, shoving the rock up the hill and continuing to do that as much as they possibly can until we get some decent change around here, which we kind of feel might be coming possibly. We'll see in 2026. Let's start off, though, with back to you, Tatum, to start this one off. A major change went down this year, and we were standing right there when it happened with the state party, with the Texas Democratic Party. They got themselves a brand new chair.
That is Kendall Scudder, close friend of Progress Texas. We are extremely lucky to see a change in leadership this year in the form of Kendall Scudder. And we've already seen the deliverance of what Texans have been asking of Democratic leadership, and that is offices across the state, a wider reach, getting into rural Texas like Eagle Pass, and overall trying to do a better job at listening to what Texans want. I know that the Democratic Party is working to ramp up to the 2026 midterms, where people will show up as an act of retribution against the inhumanity that Trump and Abbott have led together. So Kendall Scudder and his form of the Democratic Party have been inspiring this year to see some positive change.
For better or for worse, Texas definitely sets the curve for national politics. And seeing somebody like Kendall be in charge of the Texas Democratic Party as a progressive who wants to fight for working people definitely gives me a lot of hope going into 2026.
Kendall Scudder has worked so hard all year to transform the party from a party that's in debt, serious debt, to a party that's back in black, that fields candidates for every office, that puts up a fight everywhere, that seeks precinct chairs everywhere, and that takes no voter for granted. All of those were his campaign promises that I heard over and over and over. And we're not a full year into his tenure, and I feel like Kendall delivered.
Absolutely. I just love Kendall's energy. I love who he is as a person. He's so much fun to talk to. He's so much fun to hear from. He is overperforms on our podcast feed for sure. When we have Kendall on, we can guarantee pretty big numbers. People are very interested in hearing what Kendall has to say. We, Progress Texas, were the first media outlet to interview Kendall, literally maybe 90 seconds.
Right.
After he was elected to the chairmanship of the state party. And so congratulations and thank you to Kendall Scudder, who's number 5. Haley, we're going to start with you here on number 4. She was one of our panelists in Dallas. She is also, at this point, as polling goes, and polling is polling after all, but polling says that number 4 here of our best political Texans of the year 2025 is looking real likely to be nominated for governor. Talk about her.
Yeah, Gina Hinojosa. Huge fans of Gina around here. Our conversation with her at our holiday party was amazing, as per usual. She did a lot of hard work in the fight against vouchers. Gina is a fighter, and she's a great shot. I'm excited to see her future, for sure.
My 16-year-old son was very excited to meet State Rep Gina Hinojosa at the holiday party.
Very excited.
He said, "Mom, Miss Gina is so pretty. You have her number?" And I said, I do, and you're not getting it. But Gina, like me, is a Texas mom who is campaigning on public policy priorities like quality and accessible healthcare for all Texans, an affordable Texas that works for everyone, and back to basics education. It's very exciting to see a top of the ticket of 2 women that I was speaking with Josh. I don't think we've seen this since State Senator Wendy Davis and Letitia Vandepew ran for governor and lieutenant governor. So it's been a long time coming. And what a difference it would make to have 2 women in office. We'll see who the voters choose in a few short months.
Gina Hinojosa is such a great fighter. So honestly, when we found out that 1, that she was running, and 2, that the polling is showing that she's leading the way, I feel very inspired. And on top of that, to be able to fulfill and inherit the legacy of Ann Richards and have another female governor, it just feels like that would be such a testament to what we're all experiencing as everyone that's not a man in this state, is that it's hard. It's hard out here, and what an achievement it would be to have a woman in the seat.
Agreed. I can attest, as someone who has been represented by Gina Hinojosa in the Texas House of Representatives for a long, long time. She's been my state rep for a long time. Super gratifying to get to know her and her husband, John, personally a little bit. Yeah, I was a little worried that Rep. Hinojosa would have a name recognition problem across the state, just because she's super well known in Austin. Any state rep is going to have this issue, because people don't pay real close attention across the entire body of that place, generally speaking. But yeah, this polling that we're talking about shows that she does not have that problem. Out of everybody that was looked at, in fact, some folks that I would think might be a little more famous than she might be, people seem to know who Gina Hinojosa is and are excited by her message, which is really great to see. Moving on here to number 3, our third best Texan in politics for 2025 is similarly someone who has become really, really great friends of ours, is always keen to show up and give his 2 cents when we call on him to do so. Kathleen, talk about the heroic, contributions to the progressive side of politics in Texas this year from Jean Wu.
Representative Jean Wu held together the quorum break after a bruising, disturbing regular session to hear that, like we're saying about Governor Greg Abbott answering Trump's call to find 5 more congressional seats, like he called the governor of Georgia to find 11,000 more votes. Rep. Jean Wu, with the House Democratic Caucus, led quorum breakers out of Texas, kept the quorum break together, gave Democrats and progressives across the country time to understand what was happening in Texas, that it wasn't going to be ending in Texas, that it's coming to a state near you. And it did, with far less results than Greg Abbott and President Trump had hoped for. And after he returned, sat on the floor with State Rep Nicole Collier.
Right.
When he wanted to go home and see his wife and 2 children, she asked him, as the leader, would he stay with her in her stand against the Texas DPS tail of lawmakers, and he said yes. So he has shown up for Texans time and time again, despite the fact that he's married and he has young kids, and has really worked for Texans that he'll never meet. hats off to him.
He is an advocate for all, an inspiration, a fiery speaker, and just overall, we are lucky to have had Rep. Jean Wu in that particular moment. In my personal belief, it would have fallen apart without him. And so,
Agreed.
Can't state enough how grateful I am that he was in that position of leadership, and that's why I think he's one of the best Texans of 2025, and just like one of the best Texans. We're lucky to have Jean Wu.
Yeah, definitely echoing everything you guys just said. Every time I hear Jinwoo speak, I feel like I could go out and play like 4 quarters of a football game. Like I'm ready to go.
Put me in,
And
coach.
yeah, he's great. He's awesome. Totally deserved.
Yeah, big fans, of course. Let me note also at our holiday party, which happened a few days ago in Dallas. When I rolled up, I thought I was early. I thought I was the first of the crew to show up. Jean Wu was standing outside the door of the place where we had our event, People's Last Stand in Dallas. Jean Wu was the first to show up and one of the last to leave. After having driven in, I'm pretty sure, from Houston for that event. So hats off to you, Rep Wu. We really appreciate you in so many different ways. So we may be cheating just a little bit here, but it's our rules. It's our countdown. We're going to combine number 2 and number 1 of our 5 best Texans in politics into a tie. A couple of people who are just monumental in their impact. A couple of people who happen to be running against each other at this point for the U.S. Senate. We're going to go through James Tallarico and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Dallas. Mr. Tallarico, of course, an Austin State rep as well. To me, just a couple of people who are very different in their approaches, are very different in their personalities. But I think, Texas Democrats are pretty well served at this point in this Senate race with 2 of really the most dynamic and important communicators in progressive politics in Texas right now. There's talk about how it's a bummer that one of them won't win, clearly, in the primary coming up in March, and that is the truth. The fact of the matter is, I think both James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett are very much here to stay. Haley, why don't you go first on a little something on Tallarico and a little something on Crockett, Jazzarico, as it were.
Jazzarico, I'm loving that. I think a healthy primary is good for all of us. And like you said, they're very different in their approaches, but I think they capture really like the essence and the spirit of the Democratic Party, which is fighters. Progressives are fighters. And I think I am grateful that we're not choosing between like a progressive and a moderate. We don't have to have really that kind of conversation.
That's right. That's true.
Because progressives are proven fighters. And that's what this Senate race is about more than anything. And there's a little grief in having to choose one of them, but a tie for 1 and 2, I think, is definitely deserved for both.
So, readers, we've heard from you that you nominate Rep. Crockett, and other readers nominate Rep. Tallarico, and some of you nominated them both. So, very appropriate that they are our combined number 2 and number 1. And like other staff members have said, we need young voters, working people, and the millions of Texans who sat out in 2024. So having a big primary can only help people understand what's at stake in the general and what they can do about it.
Yeah, that term Jazzarico, as coined by Gina Hinojosa, thank you for that. It's going to be useful in the next coming months. All I really have to say about Jazzarico, Jasmine, and James, both of them, is they, in Haley's words and in Kathleen's words as well, are 2 of the best communicators in the Texas Democratic Party. And we are lucky for that because, to Kathleen's point as well, we need people to turn out, and they know how to get people's attention, specifically online. In this media environment, people get their news online, and both of these 2 candidates break through political noise and onto regular people's For You pages. And so, me being not a regular person for not paying attention, for paying too much attention to political news, I guess, just like you, dear listener. So I think that we're better off for it, and maybe people get more informed and engaged for it.
We talked about some of that recent polling that showed such a huge amount of name recognition for Rep. Hinojosa. I'd love to see that same poll conducted for James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett, because I think both of them are probably widely known throughout mainstream folks, people who really don't engage much with politics. They are both genuine celebrities at this point. And so once again, it's a bummer that both can't win. It's wonderful, and it's a blessing that the Democratic Party, has such great fighters in that really, really important race, which is very much at the headlining race for the 26 midterm elections here in Texas anyway. So, you would think we would be fair keeping it to 5 each, but really, we're looking to push for the positive on this particular talk today. So we do have some honorable mentions that we want to throw in on the best side of this thing. Let's start here with Tatum and what turned out to be a lot of fun on a couple of different occasions all across the state, the No Kings protests that happened over the course of the year.
Totally. I will just keep it short. One of our honorable mentions, No Kings organizers and participants got out on the streets and protested against the kidnappings of our neighbors and the tyranny of the Trump administration. So it was really inspiring to see unprecedented, historic numbers of people, Texans, showing up in support of each other.
Pretty indelible image, of course, also of Al Green shaking his cane at Donald Trump during the State of the Union address or whatever it was that Trump was doing that particular day. He's a hard guy to leave off a list like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it best, Chris. Thank you. That's what we've got Al Green on here. Another group of leaders, actually, that we have on here as well is the LDF, who we worked with on the Texas VRA. Very, very proud to have worked with this group of civil rights advocates trying to make sure that racial equality is accessible at the polls, constantly under attack this year. So just glad to be in the fight with them.
Absolutely. Here in Austin, everybody is proud of Congressman Lloyd Doggett for kind of a strange reason, for bowing out when his district was pretty much dismantled. Could have ended up a fight between him and Congressman Greg Casar for the Austin area. Rep Doggett, I think, did the honorable and strategically sound thing. He is going to be stepping down, it turns out, from the Congress. But we look forward to great, great things happening in the future with Congressman Lloyd Doggett.
An honorable mention goes to special election in Texas Senate District 9 that's happening at the end of January, and early voting begins on the 21st. Taylor Rimmet is running to bring some common sense into the Texas Senate, and he's a labor leader and a veteran and would be a voice for working people in Texas in the Texas Senate.
Absolutely. I've become a big fan of Michelle Davis, who is not an elected official. She's a blogger. She does a Substack that's called Lone Star Left that I will fully admit I've become addicted to. I read it all the time. She is super sharp, really, really gets to the point, and I've learned so much myself. Michelle, thank you so much for the work that you're doing at Lone Star Left.
The next one is from our readers who nominated Ed Sills and Rick Levy. From the Texas AFL-CIO. We're in a labor and affordability crisis. They said this amazing duo has done so much for organized labor in Texas. They fought the good fight for 30 plus years respectively, even when things felt hopeless. Please give them the public recognition they deserve. We're happy to do so. You definitely earned your spot on our honorable mentions list.
Another group of folks that were nominated were some grassroots leaders, grassroots orgs, and nonprofit leaders. That included Mothers Against Greg Abbott and Nancy Thompson, North Texas Votes with Brent Beelan, Susie Miller, Women Inspiring Leadership and Democracy with Rachel Mello, and Blue Horizon, Stephanie and Claire there. Lots of other folks as well, including labor leaders, public education advocates, and even local city councils for holding people accountable.
And another reader submission would be Vecinos Unidos, which means Neighbors United.
Yeah.
This group has done work to inform, uplift, and mobilize immigrant and marginalized communities across North Texas. They've done major demonstrations outside of ICE facilities to let people know about conditions inside. And they were recently honored at the Funky East Dallas Democrats, along with our friends at the Texas Blue Media.
All awesome. It's been quite a year. It's been an up and down year. It's always an up and down year when you're involved in progressive politics in Texas. I, for one, see a lot of up coming our way in 2026. And so we are super excited to continue to cover all the stuff that we cover here at Progress Texas. We are a statewide nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. In Progress also airs on KPFT Radio in Houston, 90.1 FM HD2 every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. More information is available at kpft.org, and more info about our work can be found found at ProgressTexas.org. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the billionaire and corporate-funded conservative disinformation machine, and we rely largely on listener support to keep doing what we do. While we enjoy the support of hundreds of partners, chances are that you, dear listener, haven't joined the team yet, so please do that now at ProgressTexas.org. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.